For a very long time, I made music with just one of these, my mouse, my computer mouse. Yes. In fact, I would make music all over the place. I went to college at the Ohio State University, and I would sit up in the Student Union building, and I would just draw in notes into Logic or Cubase. I think I might have been using Cubase at the time. Yeah, I was definitely using Cubase at the time, and I would draw in with a mouse all of my notes. I even had these massive math lectures. I was in pre-calculus, I think, at the time. There's this, big auditorium with all these students, and the professor was so bad. Number one, he couldn't understand what he was saying. His handwriting was so bad, he couldn't read it. And so I'm like, I'm not learning anything here. I probably didn't even have to be there. I could have just left, but I would sit in the very back and I'd have my computer up and I would draw in some notes and make music on my headphones while I was attending a lecture. And yes, I did end up actually passing that class, so no worries there. I made an entire song one time during one of those lectures. It's called Challenger Deep. I uploaded it under the artist name Solar Dragon, so you can check that out if you're curious. But anyway, you can make a lot of music with just this mouse. I'm not alone. Another person that does this is Deadmau5. He talked about how if you would play it, he would play it, but he can't, so he just draws it in.
See, that's my life right now, because if I could just play it, I'd play it, but I can't, so I have to draw it.
But you can see even he acknowledges this is not the best way to make music. And so that's when I found out in Logic, you actually have the musical typing feature. So if we go here in Logic, we can go to Window and we can go Show Musical Typing. And so this is really cool because here you've got a little keyboard now. And so then for a long time, I was making music with just this, my computer keyboard and my mouse combined. And so this allows you to type in some music. So I've got like this keyboard here. And so now that we have our musical typing here, we can start playing notes. So there you go. So you don't need a MIDI keyboard to make music. Now, all of that said, you're definitely still going to want to get you're definitely going to want to still get one of these, a MIDI keyboard controller, because it's going to make your life 100 times easier, even if you can't play an instrument like myself. And I'll explain why in the rest of this video, and also explain what kind of MIDI keyboard you want to get. In fact, there are 5 reasons why you may want to get a MIDI keyboard. And reason number 1 you want a MIDI keyboard is it's faster and easier to create music, even if you can't play an instrument. For example, if you get a big enough keyboard controller like the one I have here, which is a 49 key, then you can play multiple octaves at once, versus with your musical typing, you don't have that. And when withdrawing it in, you have no feel at all. So even though I'm not a musician, when I'm writing in melodies on this keyboard, I still can kind of feel where I want to go. I know if I want to go higher or lower as the music is playing, I'm playing along. And after a while, I can know, hey, this is what an A sounds like, this is what a C sounds like, this is how it's going to sound in the context of the song. And so I can know, as I'm playing, I can have a better feel for it. So it allows you a little bit more of a musical input while you're creating, which is going to speed up your workflow. You got a bigger range, so that's a big reason why you want a MIDI keyboard. So reason number 2 why you want a MIDI keyboard controller is velocity. No, not that kind of velocity. I'm talking about it senses how hard you're pressing on the keys. If you get a keyboard controller that senses velocity, which this one does, then that is really great, because depending on how hard you press down on the key, that determines how loud the volume is going to be. And that is more realistic, right? If you're playing an actual piano, if you hit the keys really hard, it's going to make a very loud sound. If you play them softly, it's going to make a very soft sound. But it's a little bit different than just volume. It is volume, but it's also, it gives a different character and tone to your notes. So you can see here with this keyboard, if I press down softly, it's pretty soft, versus if I press down very hard. Big difference. And so that allows you to create more human-like performances, because each note you're playing isn't going to be exactly the same. That's going to sound very robotic. So having a MIDI keyboard controller helps you make more realistic, more pleasant sounding music. Reason number 3 is the pitch and mod wheels. So you got pitch and mod wheels over here. And these are really, really come in handy. They're really cool. Number 1, you have modulation. So a lot of times this, you can, both of these you can, at least the mod wheel, you can tie it into a plugin in your DAW, and you can have it control a certain feature. Most of the time it's controlling it like the vibrato of a sound of a synth. And so this is really cool to automate, right? Especially during like maybe a melody or a lead sound you're playing, certain notes that may be held out longer, you can pull up the wheel and you can create some vibrato or other cool modulation effects, which is really hard to draw in, right? So if we were to play something here, so you can see here as I move up the mod wheel, you hear the vibrato go up. So that's really cool. So we could record that if we wanted to. All right, you can kind of see here in Logic how the vibrato is changing over time there with the mod wheel. We can type, hit the A key here. Actually, we want to hit the A key and we're selected on this window. And we can see, first off, the note velocity here. So you can see there's some different velocities that were played in there that we talked about. And then we also got the modulation here. So we can see the modulation. So, right, you could draw this in if you wanted to, but it's not going to be quite as musical as this. You can see how it's a lot curvier and less perfect versus if you just like draw it in and have like a straight line through here. So it gives it a little bit more character, makes it feel a little bit more human and lifelike and realistic. And you also got the pitch wheel here, so you can slide up to other notes, pitches up or down, and this is really cool, especially great if you're trying to emulate the sounding of an electric guitar. But you can also hear it sounds really cool on synths too, so let's see if we can find something cool that sound here. So you can hear the pitch went up there. It can really be really fun too at like the beginning of a note. So it just gives you a lot more flexibility, and it's really cool how you can add that in. So let's try recording something here. So there we go, we got some in there. So now if we, again, double click on this, we can now see pitch bend, and we can see our pitch bends in here. Again, you could draw it in, but it's a lot easier with a MIDI keyboard controller. Now for a real world example, you can hear how I use the pitch and modulation wheels on my MIDI keyboard in my song Midnight Hope on a guitar lead, which is actually a synth lead that I tried to make sound like an electric guitar. So you can check that out now. So let's go to the guitar now, because it's not actually a guitar, because I can't actually play the guitar, as you could probably tell. Now, if you want a complete tutorial on how I did that, how I made a synth sound like an electric guitar lead, then I have a full tutorial on this. You can check that out in the description below, or also put a card up top for you so you can go see how to do that. Now, reason number 4 why you want a MIDI keyboard controller, and this is something I don't typically use, just being honest, but other artists like this, and it's that you can control your plugins directly with the controls on your MIDI keyboard. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So we got Syntronic here. Let's pull this back up. So here's our like synth interface. So say we want to control the cutoff, I can like map this. So I can do right click and we can do MIDI learn. MIDI learn. So move the control on your MIDI controller that you want to assign to this parameter. And this isn't just Syntronic. A lot of different software synths let you do this. So I could use one of these pan pots here, or I can use one of these sliders here. So I'll use the slider here. So I'll move this, and now that controls the cutoff. You can see it controls the cutoff. So if you want to feel more like you're engaged with the mixing process, we can do that. So we can control the cutoff over time here. It's a lot better than drawing it in. Again, it adds more of that human realistic control there. So let's try recording this. First, we'll hear how this sounds. So it gives you a lot more subtle control. So if we chord this. All right. So again, we can click on this and we can go to, this is what we just did with the cutoff automation. Right, maybe we want to adjust that a little bit, but here you can see this is really cool. And maybe you don't want to do those specific moves because I just did that on the spot, but it shows you what you can do. And you can do that with any parameter, right? It doesn't just have to be the cutoff. You can come in here, any one of these controls. I could do that. Again, probably not every synth allows you to do this, but a lot of them do, where you can assign controls in your user interface here to your MIDI keyboard. And so that just gives you a different experience when mixing. It allows you to do things that are more musical. You can really feel the music more, so that way your mixing decisions, your sound adjustment, sound shaping decisions are influenced by the feel of the music versus just your eyes looking at a screen and saying, I think that looks right. And that leads me to reason number 5, why you want to have a MIDI keyboard controller, is because it helps you to feel more like a musician because you're actually playing on a keyboard. And also, maybe this could eventually help you to learn an instrument. I still definitely want to learn the piano one day. I'm so busy. I don't have time, but it would do wonders for my work if I could actually learn how to play an instrument, especially the keyboard here. So I'm hoping that one day I can learn to play the keyboard and that this will come in handy. And otherwise, it's just really great. It just helps you. I just find that the results I create are better when I'm using a MIDI keyboard than when I'm drawing with a mouse or using a computer keyboard. The results just come out better. They're more musical. They just fit better. They're more interesting, more complex. Even though I can't play an instrument, it's just me doing this on my keyboard. The results come out better. So I highly recommend getting a MIDI keyboard controller. However, if you don't have a MIDI keyboard controller and not having one is stopping you from creating music, I say get rid of that mindset. You can totally get started and create music even if you don't have a MIDI keyboard controller. So if you want to create music, you just don't have it in the budget to get a MIDI keyboard controller. I didn't have the budget for one for a long time. This one, the Innovation Launch Key, actually was a gift given to me by one of my subscribers. Shout out to my YouTube subscriber, Rawless Khan, who saw I was making music with this keyboard, and out of the generosity and kindness of his heart, he sent me one of his keyboards for free. So check him out. He is really awesome. I'll link to his YouTube channel in the description below. So big thanks to him. And that has been a big help for me using this keyboard, but you don't actually have to have a MIDI keyboard to get started creating music. So if you want to get a MIDI keyboard controller, which one should you get? Well, there's a ton of great brands out there that create them. M Audio, the first MIDI keyboard I ever had was an M Audio Axiom Pro, which I don't even think they make those anymore. Arturia, IK Multimedia, Innovation are great companies, just to name a few. And I'd say you want to get at least a 49 key, which is what this is. I know they make smaller ones, but again, you're kind of losing the advantage that you get of having a MIDI keyboard if you're using a smaller one, right? You might as well just use, this, your computer keyboard. So having a larger keyboard here allows you to get more complex. So you can play a larger range, and maybe that's not as important if you don't play an instrument, but if you do play an instrument or you plan on learning one, having more real estate here on your keyboard is really key because you're able to do more complex things, make more interesting music. So I currently have the Innovation Launch Key. I think it's the Mark II version. I believe there's a Mark III version out now. And this has been really great for me, and it's worked really well. It's got those velocity sensitive keys, which is really important. Make sure you get those velocity sensitive keys. We've also got these drum pads here. So it's also got these drum pads here. So it's a different way of playing the drums, right? If you wanted to play the drums and you wanted to like play on your keys, that's fine too. That's the way I've done it for a long time. But it's kind of nice having them all here. It's a little bit more in one little space. It's a little bit easier to play than having to like stretch out to play different drum hits, especially when you want to have this faster drum pattern. So So that's just a really cool, different way of playing the drums, and that might be more comfortable for you and get you better results, which is another reason why having this MIDI keyboard controller is great. So if you're thinking of getting a MIDI keyboard controller, the Innovation Launch Key 49 key is really great. I'll have a link to it in the description below. If you purchase through that link, I'll earn a small commission, no extra cost to you, but that goes a long way towards helping to support this channel. And speaking of making music faster, which a MIDI keyboard definitely helps you do, I have a full course that's really affordable. That walks you through how you can finish more music faster. In fact, if you follow this course, you should be able to finish music in a week or less. Imagine being able to create 50 plus songs a year. So if you're stuck never finishing music and you want to be able to finally put out finished songs that you're proud of, then definitely check out that course. You can go to orpheusaudioacademy.com/FSF, which is Finish Songs Faster, or I'll also have a link to that course in the description below. With that, if you want to check out a video on my favorite beginner microphone to get for in your home studio setup, which is actually this microphone right here, if you want to see that video, I'll have that on the screen right now. With that, keep creating, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in a future video.